Uh, what I was trying to explain is that there are moments that happen in our lives. Sometimes we are aware of those and sometimes we aren't, and sometimes they jump up and scream and yell until we can't help but take notice. One of those moments in my life happened in Vietnam, and it would have been around the 19th of July, 1967. Not more than 5 days after I arrived in Vietnam to take up work as a Foreign Service officer with the U.S. Agency for International Development. I came into Vinh Long, which is a province that lies between the Basak River to the north and the Mekong River to the south. So the second morning that I was in Vinh Long, one of my two bosses, a man named Hugh Robert, said, okay, it's time to go out into the field and begin to get your, quote, feet wet, unquote, and see what this job and this country and this war is all about. So, Julie, we trundled down in two National Harvester Scouts, thankfully devoid of military escort, which would have really made me nervous. We went all the way down south to the Mekong River, having waited for the all-clear signal for that particular road, meaning that they had gone through and hadn't been able to find any landmines in the road. At the Mekong River, we departed from the International Harvester Scout and trundled down to the riverside itself, where we were loaded into two long, narrow boats. I was in one boat. Hugh, the other American, was in another boat, and we in turn had two further boats, a convoy of 5 of these narrow long-tail boats. All of the other boats being filled with military, with weapons. These were all Vietnamese, not American. And my boat and Hugh's boat also had 2 or 3 Vietnamese soldiers. And so we started at a very slow pace up the Mekong. We didn't stay in the big river very long, only perhaps an hour, until we came to a place that I didn't notice until the little convoy of boats started to turn into it. And between 2 palm trees and a tangle of mangrove trees, there was indeed a small waterway, which they referred to as a canal, being that it was hand-dug by forced slave labor, what was called couvé labor under the French. This waterway was probably no wider than 7 or 8 feet, and heavily overgrown at the bank, and what we would ordinarily call jungle on both sides, in that you couldn't really see past the banks of this little waterway on either side. Although we knew just not far beyond the tangle along the bank, there were rice fields on both sides. This was, of course, heavy rice-growing country. But no sooner had we left the Mekong and turned onto the waterway, I first sensed it. I sensed tension. Something was in the air amongst all the troops. Hugh, being Hugh Lobet, was jolly and nonchalant and pointing out this and that and yelling back, this is so-and-so and this is so-and-so to me. And we hadn't gone more than another 50 yards then when all of the soldiers then began checking their rifles, checking that they were loaded, making sure the clips were solidly in place. Most took out the clip, slammed it back into the rifle, and pulled the receiver back, which then loaded a shell and took all their pieces one at a time out of safety and put it into firing position. So the whole little area, being as heavily vegetated as it was, resounded with all these metallic clicks. And very, very suddenly, I looked around and I looked at these soldiers slowly bringing their rifles up to a position just under one arm, left hand's under the stock. And I looked around and I thought, oh my God, what in the hell am I doing here?